All right, the entity is sounding helicopter activity. So I'm going to speak to the sequence of events and what group stalking and monitoring is. And they're acting as a group of demons. All right, so first of all, monitoring and harassment as an entity. Kimberly Fletcher of speaker companies, Maria Solis of speaker companies, Selena Robledo of speaker companies. They're going to federal prison. The entity is sounding helicopter activity. That's 7JLD 936. The entity is sounding helicopter activity while I'm in the midst of email communication with Maria Solis. And so, like I said, you're dealing with psychopaths who are wildly psychotic and hostile to any of the most minute correction with regard to this information that they just have that's just inaccurate. So you're talking about what is wildly petty, obsessed stalking, demon possessed psychopathic conduct, and you're also witnessing that when the entity, I want you to see this because Kimberly Fletcher and Maria Solis are indeed going to federal prison. So this is what the entity, I want you to see this. So while I'm engaged in email communication and I'm preparing to correct Maria Solis in email, professionally, politely, okay? But nonetheless, a correction. The entity that's engaged in what is an ongoing act of bullying. These are a demon-possessed population who seek to bully somebody. They can't bully me. They're not smarter than me. I'm also exposing them and prosecuting them. And I want you to understand what is on the surface. Yes, it's very petty, but this is a threat. This is tormenting conduct. This is psychologically damaging to the ordinary target individual. So while I am emailing Maria Solis, it's not a coincidence that the entity sounds helicopter activity. They're monitoring. The government is monitoring what's going on this email communication is a matter of public information. They're monitoring violation of Title 18. Remember that. Every communication is, the whole entity is aware of it. So while I'm in the midst of responding to Maria about a communication that we had yesterday, she's misstating what she told me. And so in my preparing a statement to reiterate what it actually is that she said, immediately the entity is sounding helicopter activity. That's a threat by an entity that doesn't want, listen, they're all watching together. They're all monitoring together. Literally, the entity gets embarrassed. While they're all trying to come against me, this is really pathetic, but this is the reality of what the demon possessed are doing, okay? And so if I correct one, remember, I'm talking to the entity, and they're all looking at what is a statement that I, the target individual, made. This is, for example, I'm gonna let you know, Kimberly is asking me about a move-in. Did I sign? This is a psychopath. She's going to federal prison because they know everything that I'm doing and what I'm working on. So this is a psychopath who is engaged in what is criminal monitoring. Through the email communication, they're engaged in Title 18 criminal conduct with the state. All right, so understand that. But the entity is engaging in what is both Title 18 criminal conduct and harassment as an entity, a psychopath asking questions that they already know the answer to for purposes of what is engaging in harassment. And while I correct them, the entity is in, with regard to statements that are not even accurate, asking me questions that you know the answer to. I'm cooperating with it because this is my job right now. While they're monitoring, I'm prosecuting, period. But I want to let you know what's both petty and it's also a terrorizing threat. It's also occurring through the workplace. Todd Speaker is going to be prosecuted civilly and criminally. The entity is sounding helicopter activity with simultaneity to my response to third-party group stalkers who work for the third-party speaker companies at the facilitating venue where the entity is sounding helicopter activity, stalking in the path because they're embarrassed about the way that I continuously correct them about what they're not even accurate about while they're being psychopaths asking questions that they know the answer to. They're group stalkers. They're monitoring. The entity is rising and setting the sun over my office, over my apartment. They're all engaged in monitoring. They're all witnessing their exposure. They're all witnessing their prosecution. They know exactly what I said when I told Kimberly Fletcher, I put her on mute. I want to be clear. And I'm capturing the light source. I'm capturing LAPD stalking a helicopter. First of all, this is the demon. She knows exactly what's being documented on the cell phone while she's continuing her conversation about the move-in for a particular apartment. This is the reality of the psychopaths that I'm dealing with. All right. But while they go on in their little fanatical fantasy, it's not a fantasy now because they're witnessing their prosecution in real time. Oh, but they have to keep up their little act. I'm going to capture the reality of the entity stalking by helicopter at the same time that you are engaging in what is creating harassing emails, because that's the significance of this. The entity that is monitoring knows exactly what it is that you're working on, what it is that is in the process of being worked on. All of the entity is group stalking here around in relevant position, and they are monitoring as the same company sending emails. Okay, so understand that that's psychotic behavior. And with simultaneity to my creating emails and rectifying, first of all, correcting the information that I was told, doing my job according to what I was told, okay? And then you have them responding. Maria, in her communication, is not being offensive or anything, but in my response to her, the entity is immediately sounding helicopter activity because the entity is hostile to my putting them in their place. This is hostility to being exposed and being prosecuted, by the way. You're dealing with literally the demon-possessed, the psychotic, obsessed group stalker that is engaging in secret criminal conduct, hostile, seething, outraged of the fact that I'm telling about all their tactics, I'm telling about the existence of their system, and I'm also telling them about what's going to happen to them. So you're only a psychopath and a sex offender, and then you are mad. That shows how crazy you are, because you're actually your reaction to that is very demented, and it's a threat to the rest of the people in this country. So anyway, back to the immediate circumstances. I step outside. Immediately, the entity is sounding helicopter activity. So I want to be clear. While I'm in the midst of this email communication, 10:49 a.m., that includes these third parties, Kimberly Fletcher, Maria Solis, and Selena Robledo, engaging in what is an electronic communication on a communication device, which all of the entity is monitoring. And with simultaneity, this is how they engage in what is harassment. And as we are going into an exchange, the entity is sounding helicopter activity based on whatever my response is, because all of an entity is embarrassed while the targeted individual corrects them. And I do so professionally. I do so with courtesy. This is not about me. I'm a professional. I don't have anything to prove. The demon-possessed entity that's being exposed and prosecuted has something to prove, but they've all lost. It's literally a defeated, pathetic entity that is literally providing evidence. Kimberly Fletcher is going to federal prison while the entity is stalking in helicopter, not coincidentally in the specific environment, while I'm in the midst of an email conversation with her. And while I start writing this documentation, the entity is immediately sounding a commercial means, for example, the Demon Driving Center for Better Life, using that vehicle as a means of audible activity while I am literally in the midst of documenting this. Because as soon as I'm composing the email, which they're all looking at, the entity sounds helicopter activity. So then I stop composing the email and I write the notes. The moment that I start doing all of the entity is aware, you're dealing with demons. All of the entity is aware of what I begin documenting. Immediately, a third-party group stalker who's in relevant position, who knows what I'm doing inside of the office. You remember the pattern of conduct, what they're doing on an ongoing basis, starts sounding audible activity. And Kilsa of 1810 number 1 immediately enters the office to engage in nothing other than criminal presence in the path while the entity is sounding helicopter activity, asking me about a question. The substance of the question doesn't even matter. She's coming in to engage in what is presence and monitoring, and also wants to be a distraction because they know that I'm about to document all the rest of them. They're all going to federal prison. Selena Robledo, Maria Solis Alvarez, and Kimberly Fletcher. Engaging in the pattern of conduct, this is harassment by the entity that is monitoring you, and they work for a third-party. Speaker Companies is a third party. The malicious and corrupt means a misuse of a business to criminally facilitate federal group stalking and monitoring, which is why the state is stalking and monitoring and harassing by helicopter every single day and all night where I live. This is why the sun is rising and setting where I live, which also happens to be where I work. That's why all 59 units that are filled with third-party group stalkers acting with the state are going to federal prison. And also remember, the systematic means of facilitation, they're going to federal prison, period. They work for the third company. This is a highly malicious and intolerable level of assistance of a government who is threatening the life of the ordinary target individual. You go to federal prison for that. Period. Okay. So they want to engage in harassment by an entity. And so this is documenting this email communication. I'm dealing with unstable, mentally demented psychopaths asking me questions that they know the answer to. That's fine. I'll entertain it because I'm going to prosecute you. And all I needed, you want to sound helicopter activity? They're going to federal prison. That's a threat. Okay. While I am in the midst of communicating with them because they're hostile psychopaths who are literally suffering from inferiority complexes, okay? And they are doing this in the workplace. So I want to make sure you're understanding what is all acting combined together. Monitoring on the venue of the internet, they don't have to be in relevant position. And this is the third party speaker companies and speaker companies, third party group stalkers. That's their legal role because they're not operating as on any constitutional basis. They're not employees exercising any privacy. It's not a company exercising any privacy under the Constitution. They are in what is the role of criminally facilitating the pattern of conduct. And it's not a coincidence where the entity is doing so in the specific environment where the entity is heavily stalking by helicopter. The entity is fully engaged in surveillance, knowing everything that I'm doing, especially on the communication devices. And that then is combined with a third-party group stalker who immediately follows by coming into the office to maintain presence. Audible activity immediately coincides with my documentation of that episode of harassment, terrorism, the entity sounding helicopter activity as I begin to respond to an email to a third party that works for speaker companies, a third party. Okay, I want to make sure that you gather all of those, how all of those are at work while you're looking at LAPD flying around in helicopter in relevant position. Okay, that third party, the Asian male that was parked next to P.O.C, and I said he's going to federal prison. He's going to federal prison. The pattern of conduct is underway, monitoring with LAPD, who's group stalking, and also you saw there is the white van. That is West Coast Chief Repair. Chief Repair is present, engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. That technician is going to federal prison. And West Coast Chief Repair is subject to civil and criminal prosecution. You're also witnessing who's present, Smart Janitorial. Those two females are going to federal prison. They are systematically present, engaging in the pattern of conduct. And they are also present while LAPD is actively communicating a threat. Both of those are grounds of federal prison. So I want to make sure you have all that. And also the third party group stalker, who's the white SUV, I believe the license plate starts with JEB. She's systematically present, and I document her license plate often. She's going to federal prison. All right. That's next to living at the facilitating venue. Any systematic means of criminal engagement in the pattern of conduct. You systematically help the state place somebody under surveillance, you're going to federal prison. Period. Okay. So it is currently 11:03 a.m. I want to make sure I document all of that. This is the pattern of conduct that I'm subject to. This is harassment by a demon-possessed and exceedingly hostile entity who is engaging in the pattern of conduct in the workplace. And this is all relevant to what is R. Todd Speaker. He is the owner of Speaker Companies. Speaker Companies Incorporated is a third party group stalker, and it's going to be placed on the database maintained by the Department of Justice as one who is engaged in terrorism and sexual violence, criminally facilitating the state of California's engagement of what is criminally placing under surveillance an American citizen, and then posing an impermissible threat, continuously doing so through also his employees, not a coincidence either, who are engaging in that pattern of conduct. It is currently, again, 11:04 a.m. I want to document West Coast Chief Repair, who's monitoring on a communication device. All of the entity is aware the fact of what's being documented. They were also monitoring me inside of my private space. I'm glad they're calling now, so I'll remind that's the significance of the screenshots I captured. While I'm inside of my private space, at the same time that I turn on my light in my bathroom, they immediately call the phone. Understand that is the coinciding elements of monitoring, and they're doing so on the communication device. They're acting in concert with the state. They are also engaging in what is monitoring right now with the intent to obstruct justice on my phone. It is currently 11:04 a.m. This is P.O.C.